Apple's startup story has been solidified in history as the quintessential new American dream. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were the original tech startup duo. The two created Apple, the first company developed as a do-it-yourself business model that has been emulated to create some of the most successful apps, websites, and hardware companies in the world. The Apple of 1976 operated out of Jobs' parents' garage. After a crucial investment of $225,000 by Mike Markula, Apple's first expansion was bringing in talent to work on the interface. Bill Fernandez and Rod Holt were both brought into the company within the next year to develop the user experience that would make Apple famous. Fernandez and Holt worked on the company's first computer model, the Apple I. As a small team, Fernandez, Holt, and Jobs manipulated and reworked Wozniak's design to create the unique all-in-one format for modern computing. Made to compete with the kits of the day that required assembly and therefore some sort of technical ability, the Apple I appealed to a much larger market. When compared to the larger tech market of the late 1970s, the relatively low starting price of $666.66 brought the possibility of home computing to a much broader audience. Jobs was breaking down the barrier between computer enthusiast and average layperson. By the release of the Apple II in 1976, the company had secured the major aspects of their branding that would persist through the company's formative years and into the decades to come. Apple's creative design process overlapped technical design in all aspects of the Apple II. The iconic rainbow logo displayed above the keyboard served as a declaration of Apple's landmark accomplishment within the field of personal computer graphics, the color display. Apple's first and earliest products, such as the Apple I, Apple II, and Lisa, certainly had an impact on consumers' perceptions of the computing industry. But the most revolutionary product from the earlier years of Apple was the original Macintosh. Until the late 1970s, many consumers viewed computers primarily as tools for corporations. Computers were machines that left no room for creativity and could be used by Orwellian governments and giant corporations to sap individuality. Apple changed this common consensus, especially with the release of the iconic 1984 commercial for the Macintosh.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests of vain contradictory thoughts. Is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
The advertisement completely changed what it meant to own a computer. Owning an Apple computer became synonymous with rebelling against the pre-existing structures that were meant to stifle creativity and individuality. Apple was seen as not only selling computers, but selling a counterculture. To quote tech analyst Neil Seibart, Apple's main product is an experience. They look at all of their products as taking away the complicated part of technology so the users can feel like they have more control over their lives. Another significant reason why Apple and the Macintosh gained so much attention was the triumphant success of the Macintosh's much-anticipated public unveiling. During the reveal, which took place roughly a year after the airing of the 1984 commercial, Steve Jobs delivered a demonstration of the Mac's capabilities in front of 2,600 journalists and stockholders. The seduction of the interface that would characterize Apple devices to this day was evident in the audience's reaction. Not used to such beautiful graphic displays, the audience quieted for a moment. A few gasps could be heard. The audience was entranced. To conclude the demonstration, the Macintosh used a text-to-speech program, eerily reminiscent of today's Siri, to introduce itself. The audience went crazy and erupted into cheers and applause that carried on for more than 5 minutes. The 1984 original Macintosh was the embodiment of Apple's early philosophy. It was user-friendly, had a beautiful graphical user interface, and changed what it meant to own a computer. Jobs' vision was to create nicely designed products for the mass market that married art to technology using sharp, minimalist aesthetics. As successful as the Macintosh became in 1984, the road to its release was a long one, and the cracks were beginning to show on the inside. Jobs' hysterical personality stirred more trouble behind the scenes at the flawless face of Apple. The biggest issue caused by Jobs' character was his clash with the president and CEO of Apple, John Sculley. This bitterness created a dangerous rift at the top of Apple, pitting the president and CEO of the company against the chairman of the board. Eventually, the strain became too much, and Jobs was eventually ousted from his position at the head of the Macintosh division and relegated to the background of decision-making in the company. However, the ambition of a man like Jobs was not satisfied in this position. While still on the outskirts of Apple's leadership, Jobs began to work on a new company cleverly titled Next. Bolstered by a healthy investment from businessman Ross Perot, Jobs began to work on Next computers. However, high prices and Jobs' signature extravagance jeopardized the company. And by 1993, Next was forced to abandon its hardware aspirations and devote itself to software instead. Despite the dying star that was Next, Jobs found success in a project quite unlike either Apple or Next: Pixar. Born out of the animation department at Lucasfilm, the studio responsible for producing the Star Wars franchise, Pixar was originally focused on creating computers and software for rendering 3D images, and Jobs immediately pushed the company to develop their products for the mass market. The public never took to it, but this move grabbed the attention of Michael Eisner, newly seated CEO of the Walt Disney Company. The capabilities of Pixar's software, coupled with the imaginative ideas of Pixar head John Lasseter, resulted in one of the premier film animation studios in the world. And all the way, Jobs' drive, energy, and money were more than just fuel for the fire. They were the fire. Jobs had obviously found some successful avenues for his ideas since his exit from Apple. With Jobs implementing his talent elsewhere, Apple was struggling. Apple needed to return to its innovative, underdog roots. What made the company special was its participation in the counterculture. Apple needed to reclaim that label and the creative energy that came with it. And the first step toward doing that was bringing back Steve Jobs. In order to do so, Apple CEO Gil Amelio chose to purchase Next in 1996. In doing so, Apple acquired the Next Step operating system and brought back Steve Jobs. During the first year of Jobs' return, the most significant change that came to Apple wasn't the introduction of some revolutionary new product or software, but the introduction of a new slogan: Think Different. This grammatically ambiguous phrase and the iconic commercial that came with it gave no indication about the quality of products that Apple would be producing. Instead, it marked the return of Apple's soul. Indeed, with Windows operating software now dominating the market, Apple was forced to think different. That is, different. Rather than thinking differently, the adverb, about the same types of products that Microsoft was producing, Apple would have to think different. Different company priorities, different marketing style, and different products. Over the course of the next decade, Apple released 3 revolutionary new products that changed the company's brand and ultimately the world. But just as important as the products themselves was the way the products were marketed. In 1998, Apple introduced a new line of computers, the iMac G3. Technologically speaking, the product was a straightforward upgrade from the Macintosh line of computers. But what made the product so important for Apple's image was its unique design. With the iMac G3, the computer and monitor were one entity. There was even a handle on the computer's shell, encouraging the consumer to just pick it up and carry it around. But the most iconic part of the new iMac's design was that it came in various bright colors. The ads for the new machine wasted no time outlining the product's technical specifications. Instead, the commercials focused on the aesthetic beauty of the iMac. This represented a clear shift back to the Jobsian mantra of the importance of great design and to an emphasis on the iMac being fun. Other computers were intended for stuffy business types, but the iMac G3 was meant for creative, lively people. And this distinction became the thesis of Apple's Get a Mac campaign.
Yeah, and he knows that I'm better at life stuff, like music, pictures, movies, stuff like that.
Whoa, what exactly do you mean by better?
By better, I mean making a website or photo book is easy for me, and for you, it's not.
Oh, that kind of better.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the other kind.
What other kind?
With Apple computers firmly established as the device for the artist, child, and anyone who enjoys having fun, Apple began to extend its hand to the music industry. The iPod represented a continuation of Apple's emphasis on beauty and simplicity. Jobs introduced the product by casually pulling it out of his pocket on stage. The slogan that announced the iPod was simple and conveyed all that anyone needed to know about it.
This amazing little device holds 1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket.
This too was coupled with an aggressive ad campaign. The Silhouette campaign further emphasized Apple products as fun technology intended for young people. Finally, in 2007, Apple unveiled perhaps its most impressive product ever. And of course, the product was announced with Apple's signature style and humor.
An iPod. A phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device.
That day at Macworld in 2007, Steve Jobs demonstrated a product that soon would become the standard for cell phones in many parts of the world. It was clear that the people in the room knew that even the simplest features of the iPhone would be revolutionary.
And to unlock the phone, I just take my finger and slide it across. Right? You want to see that again? Go to sleep.
And with that, Apple completed its trifecta of new products that harkened back to the days of counterculture, rebellion, innovation, style, and fun. So now what? After Jobs passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2011, he left us a world that he undoubtedly helped shape and define. Our world is one in which his influences exist, not only in the confines of Apple's past, but in the present and future of the company. One of the more important visions Jobs had for the company was to connect every single aspect of people's lives and integrate them into the giant Apple ecosystem. Jobs mashed so many things, phones, music players, software, and computers into a single company, and often into a single device. The future of Apple depends on what new additions the company will throw into this well-established mix. The watch, music streaming service, and television are now on the rise. Another one of Apple's outstanding traits is the company's ability to understand and approach the desires of consumers before they realize what they want themselves. Jobs argued in the late 1970s and early 80s that what most consumers truly want is a product that is elegant, friendly, easy to operate, but not necessarily alterable. Despite strong initial oppositions, time has proven Jobs' ideas to be right. The conceptual transformation from the more traditional and open Apple III to the minimalistic and closed Macintosh is implemented and kept consistent in all of the products that came later, including the iPhone, iPod, and iPad. Almost 5 years after Jobs' passing, Apple continues to pursue the ends Jobs targeted back in his days: attractive physical appearance of electronics, effective marketing, and successful corporate branding. When IBM was the top dog in the technical industry, Apple presented itself as rebellious, non-conforming, and youthful. The company certainly intends to keep this image. However, as Apple products become paragons for competitors all over the world, it is more difficult for Apple to brand itself as a reflection of the counterculture. It appears that the company will have to think of ways to keep reinventing itself in order to maintain that unique image. Otherwise, Apple will have to accept itself as the dominating culture in the modern world of technology that Steve Jobs and Wozniak sought to overcome in the first place. Until then, the Apple we have today is still very much the same one from when Jobs was alive. His philosophy is still Apple's philosophy. In Tim Cook's words, "We believe in the simple, not the complex. We believe in saying no to thousands of projects so that we can really focus on the few that are truly important and meaningful to us." And lastly, the one-liner that Jobs lived by throughout his entire life and career: "We don't settle for anything less than excellence."